What's up, folks? Maximilian here, and welcome back to Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, The Online Warrior, Season 2, and we just hit Episode 16. So some pretty substantial stuff has happened over the past weekend in relation to the competitive scene of Ultimate Marvel 3 and how this game is evolving. When it comes to a lot of stuff, in the past, I haven't really covered many events and given thoughts on the events, but I kind of want to clean that up with the Online Warrior series. And when there's news about, the ongoings of tier lists and characters, and how the professional players are using these characters, I think we should sit down and evaluate what's going on with a little bit of gameplay footage in the background. For you guys that don't know what I'm talking about, SoCal Regionals took place over the past weekend, and it was hosted by Level Up Live, which is run by Alex Valle. I think you can actually go to the Level Up channel or their stream, and you'll be able to find some of the archived footage of all these matches that we will be talking about. But what we are going to be talking about is Ultimate Marvel 3 and how it performed, and there was a lot to talk about because there wasn't just the top 8, and the leading up to top 8. There was also some stuff that happened during some exhibition matches, and let's go into that first. So, the exhibition matches that happened at SCR were between Viscant and CJ Showstopper. Viscant, the very notable Phoenix player, but has also recently been using a lot of Hagar, who he did a lot in the original Vanilla as well, and Zero. And CJ Showstopper, who's very notorious by using a Magneto on point with a lot of Virgil and sometimes Dr. Doom and Wesker. The other competition that was going on between two players was that of Infrit, which is notably the second place player at EVO 2012, who's a Nova Spencer Sentinel player or Nova Spencer and Doom. And he was going up against B, who is a up-and-coming player that actually really got noticed a few tournaments ago, and he uses Spencer, Frank, and Dante. Now, an extremely heavy mix-up team. The next one we're going to be looking at is Combo Fiend, who everybody knows, going against Marlin Pie, who also probably everyone knows about. And finally, PR Balrog went up against Chris G. So that's Morrigan versus Wolverine, and Combo Fiend was essentially She-Hulk and Nova versus Viper and Doom. So let's talk about these a little bit. The Magneto one with CJ Showstopper versus Viscant kind of went how I thought it would go. I thought CJ was going to do fairly well, and it ended up being very much in his favor at the start. But slowly and surely, Viscant had these strategies with Phoenix, and if you don't have an anti-Phoenix strategy, that chick is going to win. However, in Ultimate Marvel, if you guys don't know, there was almost anti-Phoenix strategies for everyone, and even in the inherent system itself. If you know you're going to play against those type of people, there is training mode, and you can figure out how to get around it. Infront versus B I found really interesting because Infront actually lost 5-10. I'm sorry, I did not mention the winner of the previous one. Viscant took it 10-7. Infrit lost the second exhibition with only 5 matches to B's 10, and I found this really shocking. This was actually a really exciting match because I think B might actually have the best Frank West in the world. He's one of those guys that has a specific setup to get you into level 5 Frank, and it's one of those things, man, where you can see the power of Dante Jam Session and how useful it can be used as a lockdown assist, especially with somebody like Frank that gets an invincible roll. Check those matches out if you get a chance. Of course, Combo Fiend with She-Hulk going up against Marlin Pie, this Viper and Dr. Doom team. I think Combo Fiend eventually switched it up to Nova every once in a while, but this was the highlight of all the exhibition matches. This one went 9-10, and if you watch this, it was extremely exciting. These guys were playing really well. They were dropping some combos here and there. You can tell some nerves were on the line, but it was really exciting because of how close it ended up being. And there was a lot of stuff being shown off here, especially with Combo Fiend doing a lot of stuff with the command grab mix-ups with She-Hulk and bringing in other characters to reset damage. Marlin Pie busting out brand new Doom stuff almost every single day, it seems. So that's a great set of matches. If you guys want to see some really high-level Marvel and really exciting to boot, check that one out. And the last one was Balrog, or PR Balrog, versus Chris G. Now, Chris G is notoriously the most, I'd say, proficient player at Ultimate Marvel 3. He's definitely the most successful when it comes to the East Coast, and he's won, as far as the casual, not the casuals, but the weekly events they have going on the East Coast, which are run by Spooky. Dude, those things, he's, I think, won 50 weeks in a row or something crazy like that. This Morgan and this Dr. Doom team is extremely effective as far as controlling the pace of the game. And PR Balrog went 8 games to Chris G's 10, and Chris G ended up taking it. But PR Balrog has this unique strategy with the characters he uses, which is Wolverine, Doom, and Virgil. Wolverine is a very powerful character that dominates the ground space, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit because that's the highlight of this episode. But for the most part, he did not take this one, and Chris G ended up winning. But this will come around a little bit later in our story with what happened later in the events of SCR. Now let's talk about the finals of Ultimate Marvel 3, the top 8. Looks like the top 8 spot went to Infant, tied with Angelic, who is also awkwardly using Wolverine, Dormammu, and Shuma Garath. That Shuma Garath assist works amazing with Wolverine. If you guys see the eye laser assist, it's fantastic. Justin Wong, who I was actually predicting to win this one, didn't come quite all the way and tied with Filipino champ for 5th place. Now that was pretty shocking considering one of the best Marvel players there is, and the technical best Marvel player there is, who is Filipino champ because he won EVO, only got 5th place in this tournament. Surprisingly, he was beat out by a guy that's very proficient in quote-unquote anime fighters, and has done very well for the most part from his local tournament scene, and now he's got a chance, or he had a chance to make it big at a major, which was SoCal Regionals, and it's ApologyMan. Now, what I find really interesting, and here's a quick talk about synergy and how synergy works. ApologyMan was using Super Skrull, Frank West, and Dr. Doom. I think Dr. Doom was mainly an assist character, and Frank West was pretty much the bulk of his team, but then you ask, well, why isn't Frank on point? He has a very specific setup to get Frank to point. What I love about this guy's team is that it's the game plan is so simple, it's all about executing it. And the fact that the game plan is simple, it doesn't lead to all this other crazy stuff that he needs to do in order to make the game plan work. His game plan is to get Frank to level 5 and to freaking win. Ideally, with Super Skrull at the beginning of a match, you start off the game and you can't really get hit. That's the most important thing with Marvel. Whoever lands the first hit wins, and a lot of the time his Skrull was landing the first hit. If he got you in a basic combo, a basic ground chain with Skrull, and maybe like a ground bounce into an up MMHS combo, he was able to get just enough meter to get to level 2, a lot of the times, even if he started off with a hit. So that means that he goes into the, he loves me super, where he bursts fire all over the place, and that thing does a ridiculous amount of hits. And almost immediately, he's able to get Frank West to level 4 or 5. Just off of that with a very brief DHC, because that super from Skrull ends in a hard knockdown, and Frank clicks a picture, and bam, you have the most powerful character in the game, technically. It's a simple strategy. It seems like anyone can be able to do it, but it's not that easy. Using Skrull on front with certain assists and Frank West shopping cart and stuff like that, you have to land that hit. And it's crazy to think that with the game with as much insane synergy, that seemed like to be the bulk of his game plan, and it was working really well, and he was executing it really well. It's interesting to see stuff like this happen, even this late into the game of Ultimate Marvel 3, where kind of like the most basic of strategy is really effective as long as you're just a good player. It's one of those things, man. If you're able to see what your opponent's doing and able to understand your characters to a T, it really changes things as far as what you think can actually be effective in a game that is full of quote-unquote top tiers. Next up, we had Marlon Pie taking 3rd place, which was fairly expected. I think Marlon actually had a good chance of winning this one as well, but over Chris G, I did not think it was happening. And in the very, very grand finals, it was PR Balrog versus Chris G. Now, this is a repeat of what happened earlier with the exhibition matches, and Chris G actually won that 10-8. But in a surprising turn of events, everyone was predicting Chris G to take this one, but PR Balrog had some different strategies he was using with Wolverine on point, Dr. Doom and Virgil on the back. This is kind of going to the testament of how powerful Wolverine actually is in these games. Now, Morrigan's the character that is the exact counter to Wolverine. She needs to keep him out for the duration of a match, or at least until he dies, get him blocked up and chip damage, stuff like that. Morrigan dominates the sky, but Wolverine dominates the ground, so they're polar opposites. And usually the sky wins, but PR Balrog switched up his strategy a little bit, and was actually able to take the entire tournament with Wolverine on point. Now, what I find really interesting about this is that it's a Rushdown team versus what is believed to be the most powerful strategy, which is Morrigan. And could it possibly be that we have something that can fight, the extremely powerful, almost unstoppable Morrigan team in Ultimate Marvel 3? Maybe proper usage and real smart play of something like Wolverine, which is one of the fastest and most effective ground characters, can actually handle Morrigan if he can possibly get through the huge barrage of Soul Fists absolutely freaking everywhere. What I did find interesting, which is why the topic of this video is coming around now, that there were 3 on-point Wolverines in this top 8. Now, there's Dr. Doom absolutely anywhere. If I look at these, I see a Dr. Doom on pretty much every single team except Infrit in the finals, Angelic, and Justin Wong. All of the top 5 players were using Dr. Doom to some degree. He was not on point, he was absolutely an assist character. And I think there's actually been a variety of different assists now, like guys are using rocks instead of hidden missiles, and even some dudes are using plasma beam because of its high durability. Nonetheless, Wolverine was a point character 3 times out of the top 5 in this finals, actually the top 6 in these finals. And this is interesting because this hasn't happened in a while. Normally, PR Balrog is just one of those guys that does extremely well. He won Canada Cup with Wolverine, and I think he actually went up against Justin in the finals there as well. And these guys just see something with this character. They see the power and the potential that Wolverine really has. And I think Wolverine's going to make an uprise once again in Ultimate Marvel 3. You see a lot of Novas on point, you see a lot of Spencers, and you see Virgil almost everywhere, but Virgil sits in that level 3 X Factor spot. There was almost, actually, looking at this list, there was not one Wesker at all, and I think there was only one Magneto in this entire finals. I think that is correct, yeah, and it was Filipino champ. Only one Wesker and one Magneto, or actually no Wesker and one Magneto in these finals. So things are changing once again, depending on the play, depending on how people are actually making it into finals and which characters are going to be making it. Take out the quote-unquote random factor of Marvel, and you have players that are using characters to a degree that you might not have ever seen before. So what this is essentially boiling down to is that this was an extremely interesting finals for SoCal Regionals. If you guys have the chance, please check these matches out, because there's something changing with the way this game is being played. It might actually be switching to the Rushdown centric. So for a lot of you guys that actually come to me frequently and are asking questions along the lines of, how are you supposed to deal with keep away? It seems like an extremely powerful strategy in a game that is normally dominated by heavy offense. For the most part, the remainder of the Marvel games in general have been very offensive heavy, at least in higher level competitive play. However, if you get into games like Marvel 2 and you have a guy, using Cable and Captain Commando or, anything of that nature, that can be almost impossible to get around if you don't know exactly when to push block and when to counter your opponent's attacks. People seem to forget sometimes that Marvel vs. Capcom as a series has had a very powerful mechanic in it, and it's that some characters are extremely good at keep away, and that can be very hard to get around, and it kind of blows people up that are not of a higher competitive level. Especially in online scenarios. You guys know this is true in a game like Ultimate Marvel 3. So what I hope to see is, based off some of this, that maybe the keep away playstyle is actually going to be going by the wayside. Who knows? It just seems to be that this could be a trend, this could be something that's just happening from SCR, it could be total convenience of events, but I almost don't mind Wolverine seeing Wolverine every once in a while because of how many crazy mix-ups he has. But maybe this will open up the way to some other characters like X-23, even though she doesn't have the damage output. She does have the setup ability to take advantage of some crazy things in this game. And who knows, man, there's a lot that can happen with the future of this game, especially with all the talks and all the rumors that there can be more Ultimate Marvel 3 on the horizon. And we discussed that quite a bit in some previous episodes. What's nice to know is that Capcom actually acknowledged that and came back and said, yo, we hear you guys and Marvel hears us. So who knows, man? Who knows what future iterations of the game hold for us? But right now, we're on an interesting cusp of how people are playing this game. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. If you guys happen to enjoy this episode of Ultimate Marvel 3, The Online Warrior, and enjoyed a brief recap of SoCal Regionals and the competitive play in the Ultimate Marvel universe, please leave me a comment below. And as usual, if you guys have any suggestions or topics of conversation, I do read these every single time. Go ahead and leave them in the comments below as well if you would like me to discuss something that you are having trouble with or you are concerned with the community of Ultimate Marvel 3. My name is Maximilian, and I'll see you guys next week.